Olá, gente, boa tarde. Good evening for some people here today. Bem-vindos a mais um episódio, a mais um mock class para educadores brasileiros, ministrado em parceria com a EFIG e a Universidade Mary Immaculate College pela doutora Miv. No dia de hoje, vamos discutir aí a prática do STEAM dentro da sala de aula. Semana passada foi muito bacana, a doutora Miv trouxe aí várias histórias aí para trazer a ciência dentro da literatura, e hoje a doutora Miv vai falar um pouquinho das práticas. Galera, só para quem não conhece, pessoal, para quem ainda não está acostumado, é o primeiro episódio que está assistindo, eu peço, por favor, que deixem a sua câmera desligado, o microfone de vocês desligado, e aí, quando forem interagir com a doutora Miv, abram o microfone e interajam com ela. Por favor, gente, hoje eu quero ver aí muita comunicação entre vocês. Os alunos de vocês estão interagindo mais que vocês, hein? Eu quero ver isso contrário hoje, hein? Por favor. So, thank you very much for joining us today. Sarah Power from Mary Immaculate College. She's going to tell you guys a few words about Mary Immaculate, and then Dr. Miv comes and do her magic.
All right, thank you, Diego. Good evening, everyone from Ireland. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all very much for joining this collaboration between EFIG and Mary Immaculate College, MIC. My own name is Sarah Power, and I work in the International Office of Mary Immaculate College. And before my colleague, Dr. Maeve Liston, begins, I would like to give you some details about the college. Mary Immaculate College is a university-level college that was founded in 1898. It's the oldest third-level institution in Limerick City, which is Ireland's third largest city and located in the Midwest of Ireland. MIC has a reputation for excellence in teacher education and in the care of our students. We have a growing and diverse community of just under 5,000 students, Irish and international, enrolled in undergraduate programs in education, liberal arts, early childhood care and education, and a range of postgraduate programs at graduate diploma, MA and PhD levels. Over the last year, we have welcomed 19 Brazilian students, teachers, to our campus, and these teachers participated on a year-long graduate diploma in mentoring and leadership for teachers. During this program and throughout the year, they visited local schools, worked with school supervisors, had lectures on campus, they had classes with Maeve, they learned about the Irish educational system. The program was a big success, and the students have just finished up this last week. The last few are going to be going home on Monday, and they submitted their final assignments last week. And if you have any questions at all about this program or about any of our postgraduate programs, please do feel free to contact me. Mary Immaculate College prides itself on its excellence in teaching, learning and research with engaging and challenging courses. Our academics are leaders in the field in their areas of expertise, and their high level of academic quality is combined in the care for their students and a wish to help each student on their academic journey. So Dr. Maeve Liston, who is going to be leading this class today, is the Director of Enterprise and Community Engagement at Mary Immaculate College. She is also the Senior Lecturer in Science Education at the college, and she has extensive experience in teaching science and science education at all levels in education, primary, secondary and third level. She lectures at undergraduate and postgraduate level, including on the Masters in STEM education. This program obviously might be of interest to some of you, so please, again, if you are interested, contact us. So to finish up, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and enjoy the class. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back to those who were here on Wednesday with me, and welcome to the new any new teachers that we have today. I suppose just to kickstart, just to recap on what we did Wednesday. So on Wednesday we looked at science education, and we looked at what actually is science education in the elementary classroom, and then we looked at actually challenges that teachers have in schools. And specifically then in part 2 we looked at literacy and how we can develop literacy skills in the classroom. And we had a very interesting conversation, especially Andre was speaking about that, you know, English teachers are expected to teach science. So it was great that we looked at then developing literacy in the classroom. So today we want to move on, and there's a big movement in Ireland moving away from calling everything science education to now STEM education. So for the first section, it'll be around 15 minutes. We will play a video. We'll stop the video halfway through. So watch out for those questions, because I'll be asking you those as we go through the video. So I know it's a Friday evening, and it's so great to see so many people on a Friday evening. So we'll get started straight away. So Diego, can you start playing the video, please?
Yes, definitely. Okay. So, is that okay, Doctor?
Yeah, perfect. This session provides an introduction to STEM education and the emergence of STEM education. It explores the concept of STEM education in detail and the characteristics of truly authentic STEM learning experiences. When we hear about 21st century skills, we are continuously hearing this word innovation. We need innovative classrooms, we need innovative teaching methodologies, we need innovative teachers and children. Teachers are now under pressure to be innovative. STEM education is placed at the heart of this innovation. Therefore, the emergence of STEM is now at centre stage in the education reform movement. There is a call to integrate STEM right across the education system, and the need to prepare students with 21st century skills through STEM-related teaching, especially at the grassroots level at primary level. We now need learning environments that are flexible, self-directed, social, productive, and responsible. We want to knock down the traditional boundaries between disciplines and overcome interdisciplinary approaches. We need new pedagogies. 21st century skills require young people to have questioning and inquiring minds with effective problem solving, creativity and communication skills. The ability to memorize facts and procedures is not enough. They must also be able to apply their creativity, knowledge and skills within and across disciplines and in real life situations. Governments and industry are highlighting the importance and the need for a highly capable STEM workforce and a population with the above mentioned skills to ensure economic, social and cultural prosperity. In Ireland, we have had many strategies recently looking at 21st century skills and specifically looking at STEM. From our National Science Foundation Ireland, Innovation 2020, our National Skills Strategy, our Action Plan for Jobs, and our Action Plan for Education. So as I've mentioned, STEM education is now recognised as a powerful teaching strategy that can completely refocus education, concentrating on critical thinking and a willingness to explore and engage with the real world. Hence, there has been the emergence of this whole STEM mania phenomena. We are now speaking about STEM everywhere, with so many STEM events, STEM teaching resources, STEM festivals, STEM kits, etc. STEM outreach in schools has the potential to engage, inspire and enrich science by making science new, interesting, exciting and relevant. Consequently, such activities can also enhance science education in the classroom through teacher professional development and the delivery of lessons through innovative, active and creative pedagogies. However, many STEM lessons, outreach and workshops quite often do not possess the characteristics of true STEM education. All science events and lessons are now being labelled STEM events and lessons. However, we must take a step back and evaluate such activities and question, for example, is a coding session a STEM lesson, or is it just a technology lesson? Or is building a circuit a STEM lesson, or just a physics lesson? Okay, I keep speaking about STEM, but a question for you. What is STEM? When I say STEM to you, write down what you believe STEM is. What is STEM? Now I want you to think about, what do STEM lessons look like? Think about what are the key features and characteristics of a STEM lesson. Okay, you can stop, Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're back again. So I asked you 3 questions there. So I just introduced, I suppose, why we're moving towards STEM, and we're talking about innovation, and we're talking about having innovative children that will eventually become innovative employees, and the importance of STEM. But we better talk about what actually is STEM. So what did you write down when I said what is STEM? Does anyone want to go?
Is it like science, technology, engineering, and math?
Excellent, yeah. Yeah, excellent, Andrea. Yeah, so STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths. Did anyone else write down anything else? Anything other than that? Okay, so I suppose if we go on to the second question, what do we mean? What would that look like? So, as I was saying, what would a STEM lesson look like? So, I was saying a coding session technically is not a STEM lesson. It really is a technology lesson. But if you go to any coding event, they call it a STEM event. Or making a circuit, that's just a physics lesson. So how do we go from the science lesson to a STEM lesson? What do STEM lessons look like? Anyone want to give a guess?
Please, guys, if you're too shy to speak on the microphone, please put in the chat box, and then I can read to Dr. Meave. But please, guys, let's interact here. Let's change information. Let's do these exchanges. A great opportunity for us.
I think there is a lot of exploration and teamwork in a STEM lesson. I don't know if I'm wrong. And it's usually hands-on. It fosters students' curiosity, and students are stimulated to come up with hypotheses.
Excellent, yeah, excellent, Maria. A very important point to a STEM lesson. It's all revolves around group work and collaboration. And as you say, you'll have a hypothesis in order to solve a problem. So that's one key feature. Any other key features of a STEM lesson?
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Janina, go ahead.
Okay, I would just say that STEM lessons are very constructivist, because the student goes from the concept to the final product. The students build everything. They can come up with the concept and go to the final product.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, Janine, that's actually a very interesting point, because in a STEM lesson, more often than not, we're actually bringing creativity into the lesson. So in a STEM lesson, children are designing and making, you call it an end product, but we also call it like a prototype or a model. So children actually design and make some sort of prototype, some piece of equipment in order to solve a problem. And so actually STEM lessons, the most important part of a STEM lesson is the engineering. So if you think of engineers designing and building bridges, so engineers, get their hands dirty almost. So the engineers and their designers, their makers, it's even in a STEM lesson, you're bringing in architecture. You're bringing in a lot of design and make skills in. So you're working towards an end product. So excellent, yeah. Andrea, you wanted to come in again?
No, actually, I was going to say that, I couldn't agree more with Angela, because, for example, I totally agree that every single time when we work with the STEM lessons, you have to come up with something. So, for example, whether it is like a prototype, whether it is like I don't know, like a robot, but I think the thing is, the main idea is that whenever we are actually trying to work with the STEM, and towards the end of the lesson, we do have to have a final thing.
Yeah.
So they do have to come up with something, regardless. And for example, and again, I'm not an expertise in STEM education, as well, but whenever I try to deliver a STEM lesson at my school, that's my final target. By the end of the lesson, what would they have come up with? So they're going to have to build up a bridge, or they're going to have to build up like a train wagon, or something has to come up with by the end of the lesson.
Yeah, excellent. And well, what I find with it as well, they have something at the end of the lesson, but you start off actually with an engineering challenge for them. And as they're going through the activity, and as they're learning together, they're applying their knowledge about science. So they're learning more about science, and they're applying mathematics. So maybe they're measuring, maybe they're doing angles, to design and make their product. They're testing it. The same with science. They have made something physical in front of them, but they're applying their knowledge of, let's just say, friction and forces. So they're applying, or magnetism, or balance. Andrea, you spoke about bridges. So they have to ensure that they understand about balance, that they understand about the distribution of mass across the bridge. They understand about the properties and characteristics of materials. So if you get the engineering challenge correct at the beginning of the lesson, the children will learn the science. The science will come to them. You can do this by getting them to research different types of bridges. And then when they test their bridges, they're understanding much more. It's just applying the knowledge, rather than you telling them about balance, that they're actually experiencing that my bridge is wobbling, I need to balance it. Okay, so will we move on, Diego, if anyone else? Yeah, and we come back to it again then, STEM again. Great, thanks. Keep these notes in front of you, and as we go through the session, we would look at what STEM is and the characteristics of a STEM lesson, and refer back to your initial thoughts. Most recently, Ireland's STEM education policy aims to encourage and inspire more of our young people to specialise in science, technology, engineering and mathematics during their education and training. The term STEM education is now widely used in Ireland. We have moved from talking about science and maths education now to STEM education at primary level. The STEM education policy mentions things like support STEM teachers. It presents actions which are integrated STEM-based actions. However, in Ireland at primary level, we only have a science and a mathematics curriculum. There is no technology curriculum, and we do have a national digital skills strategy with the vision of embedding IT and technology into teaching, learning and assessment. However, we do not have a technology subject at primary level. And there is certainly no focus on engineering in the science curriculum. We have a focus on design and make at a very low level. For example, design and make a container that can hold paper clips. And this is in the magnetic section of the curriculum. So at the moment, our curriculum is not suitable for STEM education. Similar to many countries, we have a set national curriculum. Not like other countries where schools and school districts can design and develop their own school curriculum. We must ask ourselves, are teachers ready to teach STEM? This semester, when working with teachers in schools and with pre-service teachers, I asked them what STEM is. Some of the teachers did not even know what STEM stood for, and of those that did know, I asked them how would STEM look like in a real classroom. They mainly mentioned science lessons involving measurement and data collection, with some form of technology integrated at a very low level. A study by Brown et al. Found that teachers in the STEM fields all had varying levels of understanding of STEM education and lacked a unified vision of STEM education. So in order to implement STEM education, we need new pedagogies, we need innovative activities, and expertise in STEM education, learning and assessment. And we need to include coordinated, innovative learning and teaching skills into the classroom. So, what actually is STEM? STEM education is an interdisciplinary approach to learning that removes the barriers between the 4 different disciplines and subject areas. It also integrates real-world, rigorous and relevant learning experience for students. If presented and taught correctly, and if true, authentic STEM education is adopted, it should have the following characteristics. Integrating science, technology, engineering, and maths. It should be creative. It should involve problem solving and teamwork. It should develop a deeper level of knowledge and understanding of maths and science to create technologies and solutions for real-world problems using the engineering design approach. It is about solving problems through design and developing prototypes. So can we say a science lesson is a STEM lesson? So when we're teaching science, it involves inquiry-based learning and experimenting. Unfortunately, this is not enough for STEM education. Usually in science, students are conducting an experiment to test a hypothesis, but they're not designing or engineering a solution that can solve the problem, and a real-world problem at that. For example, a science experiment to determine the effects of acid rain on a local crop. This is science, but in a STEM lesson, students might take that information and use it to design a product or a process that might lessen the detrimental effect of the acid rain. Now, technology. What is technology? A lot of people and teachers feel that technology has to be a device, like a laptop, coding. It has to be a specific piece of software or hardware. But a technology can be a paperclip, for example. A paperclip was designed and developed to solve a problem. A paperclip keeps your papers together. For example, a pen, all the different designs and engineering that goes into all the different types of pens. So back to my question about coding. If a teacher is teaching a new course in coding, that specifically is not STEM. It's just a teaching skill that could be used within a STEM program. Engineering is the most important part of a STEM lesson. It is the glue that sticks the science, maths, and technology. So if you're giving an engineering problem to solve, and you'll have to design and develop a prototype for the solution, this automatically integrates concepts of science, maths, and technology in order to design and develop your prototype. Many science lessons involve the gathering of data and the presentation of data. But STEM lessons go further with mathematics and look at analysing, reasoning, and interpreting your solutions. The domain of robotics represents a multidisciplinary and highly innovative field encompassing physics, mathematics, informatics, coding, and programming. Robotics can also help in the practice of the use of scientific process skills, the engineering design process, and problem-solving approaches, incorporating skills such as observation, estimation, manipulation, and social interactions, and therefore in the delivery of STEM education in our schools. Efforts to enhance the quality of science and technology, visual arts, literacy, and numeracy in education have often all been in isolation to one another. However, robotics can bring all these together. Teachers are bombarded with so many different policies and initiatives. Robotics, if used successfully, can integrate literacy, numeracy, science, art, etc. The T and the E of STEM education appears to be an obstacle to producing meaningful STEM experiences. However, integrating robotics into the classroom is an effective means of gluing the STEM together in the classroom. Okay, so we're back again. So actually everything that people said there in the questioning in the middle of the session was completely on the right track to STEM education. So as you see, I was reiterating everything that you had actually said. Most importantly, STEM, as you can see, it's all about the engineering and designing the prototype. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they want to discuss about, in case you're not clear about what STEM is? In the next part, we're actually going to look at where would you begin with STEM, and look at actually, you might have noticed STEM education, really for it to be true, authentic STEM education, we should really be looking at real life problems. So in today's session, I'm actually going to look at climate change and how you can bring climate change into the classroom using STEM lessons and engineering. So that will be in the next part. But I suppose back to, have any of you used robotics in the classroom? Anyone use any type of robotics in the classroom? Robotic kits? No? Okay, Janina said no. Because robotics, I just said I would show you at the end, robotics can be quite a very good way of bringing it in, because you have your robot, you have to design and develop it, so you're bringing in your engineering. There's a lot of science, as I said, about properties of materials, forces, you learn about speed and motion. Also, you're learning a lot of hand-eye coordination, your creativity. Kids are working together, but they have an end product at the end. Also, well, the programming in robotics would come true because with the technology, and the mathematics, then you're looking at shape and space and looking at spatial awareness, measuring angles, speed, etc.
I've never I've never used robotics in my English classes, but I mean, we do offer that in my school. So actually now, just thinking in a different side of perspective, I think that would be a good idea to join the robotic classes plus the English classes, that maybe we could have like a flipped classroom. I don't know. I mean, it's just ideas that's just popping up in my mind right now, because we do offer robotics for the kids, but I have never actually taught robotics in my class. But now having that in mind, I could mix it up the lessons.
Yeah, excellent. And I run a robotics program in schools we have around 60 schools in our area, and what we're finding is I work with Dell Technologies, and Dell Technologies were at the beginning, they were all about the technology and all about the robots, but now they're finding, oh wow, it's much more than that. We have, the children are working in groups, they're developing their oral language and their literacy skills and their teamwork skills.
Wow.
We also found, we have one particular school in Limerick, in the city where we were based, and the school was a very disadvantaged school, and the teacher could never get the children to attend classrooms, so she never had full attendance in the classroom. But when they did the robotics program for the 8 to 10 weeks, not one day went by that a child missed a class, because they were all excited about it. It was a very interesting finding, that robotics, and what we found was, I suppose the kids that are high achieving and know lots about maths and know lots about science, sometimes got more frustrated. The children who were lower achieving, they actually did brilliant in the engineering. They had a logical mind, and they were, hands-on, and they were making. And so actually we found that it's really, really good for mixed ability as well, which we weren't sure it would go that way. We thought maybe weaker students might kind of shut off and might not like it, but actually it was the opposite. They got, so it is worth, I know it's money and it's investment, but I would consider robotics. Lego we use in Mary Immaculate College, or Vex robotics.
Doctor, you just touched a very interesting point, because for example, what I did throughout this lockdown process here in Brazil, because for example, of course, we had to offer them like quizzes and examinations, but what I actually found really rewarding for them, that every single class, they had to come up with a project. And to my surprise, and maybe I was even using this methodology without even realizing, because they had to come up with every single class, with the final presentation, with the final project. And I have found out that most of the students that they were not participating before, because I mean, they were not really engaged, due to this fact that, I mean, they were developing things that they really put their hands on. It was marvelous. It was outstanding. I was really, really taken aback by the amount of projects and presentations and gadgets that they come up with. It was amazing. It was amazing. And again, during this really difficult moment that everybody's going through, they were really challenged to come up with amazing ideas, and they did. And it was a really rewarding experience for me as a teacher. I mean, seeing students that they never participated in lessons before, taking part and being engaged at the same time.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, we're finding that in Ireland as well. On my Twitter feed, I'm noticing.
I'm really happy to hear that. Because, for example, so I'm pretty much what you're doing there, I'm doing here. So this is amazing for me as a teacher.
Yeah,
thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah, excellent. And yeah, so the project work is, I think people will continue with the project work after COVID when we have them in the classroom. So that's excellent.
Yeah. Sorry, Professor, we do have here Janaína Leite de Souza. I don't know which school she is from. She said we've got to design a water purification system in our school for 6th grade.
Yeah, I was just going to read this. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's good. Janina, you're ahead of me, because that's what we're going to be looking at now in the climate change. So that's that's excellent, because, you know, that's a real world problem. So you're taking, you know, so you can start, and I think it's important to start at the basics with the children. So getting them to design and develop their bridges, getting them to design and develop towers, but to bring us the next step, like a water purification system for their school. So they're immediately invested in it, because they're solving a problem for their school, but also it's a real world problem, that water purification, due to climate change, due to I suppose flooding, storms, water purification is very, very important. So that's very interesting. I'd really like to see how they got on with that. 6th graders, I'm not sure what age group they are. Are they 12? 12?
Yeah, some of them are 12, some of them are 13 years old. They're pretty small.
Yeah, but it's an excellent project. Yeah, well done. Okay, so actually that's great. That's probably leads us into the next part of the session. So Diego, do you want to play it? Thanks. This session will explore STEM further. It examines the engineering design process and how engineering glues science, mathematics, and technology together. We will look at STEM activities and challenges that incorporate STEM pedagogies into science lessons. In science curricula around the world, there has been traditionally a focus on design and make activities, which involve exploring, planning, making, evaluating, all incorporating problem solving, critical thinking, and application of knowledge. STEM education just brings that all together and brings it that step further by incorporating the engineering design process into your design and make activities. STEM revolves around project work, about thinking, planning, designing, exploring, experimenting, and analysing results and arriving at conclusions. Jolie sets out the components of a STEM lesson. So when you're designing a STEM lesson, you should ask yourself these questions. Does the lesson present a real world or an engineering problem and challenge? Can your students relate to the problem? Does their lesson allow students multiple, acceptable, and creative approaches and solutions to solving the problem? Does the lesson integrate and apply important science and maths content? Does the lesson use the engineering design process? Does the lesson use student-centered hand-on approaches? Does the lesson lead to the design and development of a model or prototype? Is the role of technology clear to the students in the class? Does the lesson successfully engage students in purposeful teamwork? Does it include testing the solution, evaluating the results, and redesigning to improve the outcome? And does the lesson involve students communicating about their design and results? So, where would you begin in the classroom? Where would you start? How would you start, or where would you begin with your students? What if they've never carried out the engineering design process before? Can we jump straight into a STEM challenge or a STEM lesson? Where should we begin in order for the children to develop their understanding of true, authentic STEM education? The engineering design process must be the main focus in STEM activities. Oh, sorry, Diego, so can you stop that's there? where we should begin. Okay, just ignore that last slide. Okay, so, right, you're new to STEM, your children are new to STEM. From everything we've spoken about, where would we start? You know, how do we develop their understanding and get them to, like, for example, design a water purification system? But in order to do that, we have to start somewhere in the classroom with the children. So where would you begin to try and develop, get them towards a STEM project? Just think to yourself, like, if you were a teacher and you were thinking, where would I start? How would I develop an understanding of STEM slowly but surely with myself, but also with the children? Because if you look at Jolie's list, there was a significant list there. Was there 11 or 12 points on the list? You know, you're probably not going to get that straight away. So where would you start?
Maybe we should start like gathering information that will help them with their new design project.
Yeah, very good. So, like, I think very important, Janine, to start with showing them the importance of research and gathering data. Yeah, so maybe in one lesson you might actually focus in on research and solving a problem, but you might not necessarily include every single step. You might not necessarily include that it has to be a real world problem. It could be just a problem that needs to be solved for science, but you're showing them the importance of data gathering. Very good. Where else could we start? I suppose, what did I say was the most important part of the S, T, E, and M? The E. So the E is the most...
Engineering.
Yeah, the engineering, exactly. So the engineering. So again, I spoke to you about that. We don't have engineering in the Irish elementary or primary school curriculum. We have science and we have maths. So engineering is a completely new concept for us. For me as well, it was a completely new concept for me. I studied science. I'm not an engineer. So that's where I began. I had to begin and to understand the engineering design process. And then I introduced that to my pre-service teachers, and we introduced it to teachers and children in the schools and in the classroom. So I would start there. start with actually them understanding the engineering design loop, which I will show you in a while. So I would start slowly. I would start with small, short, simple engineering activities like building bridges, maybe building a chair, small, short challenges so that they're learning how to act like an engineer and engineering habits of mind. And then I'd move on to the big projects. I'd move on then further. So I just have a few examples. There's so many examples you could use, but I will just show you 3 different examples I use just for children and teachers to get used of the engineering design process. Not the whole STEM concept, but just the engineering design process. Diego, we might play it and show everyone. We should begin with simple engineering design processes that the children can become familiar with the engineering habits of mind, designing and developing solutions for problems. And then we can move further on then to more advanced real-life problems. The engineering design process provides a model that guides students from identifying a problem or a design challenge to creating and developing a solution. Students develop multiple ideas for solutions. They develop and create a prototype. They test their prototype. They evaluate, and then they redesign. There are many different models for the engineering design process that are used in the primary school curriculum. I like this one. I begin with this one. Ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. As the children improve their understanding of the engineering design process, I move on then to a cycle with many more steps that they can follow. So for example, Jodie's define the problem, research the problem, imagine, plan, create, test, and evaluate, redesign, and communicate. So what does it look like in the classroom? You give or you define the problem to the children, giving them criteria. They may go and conduct research on possible ideas for their solutions. They imagine, they start brainstorming ideas and how they can solve the problem and come up with possible solutions and ideas. So imagining should involve them drawing and sketches of their prototypes. Then once they have once they've chosen a solution, they will plan which prototype will work best. They will then go and create it, design and develop the prototype they have selected. Most importantly, they must test it and evaluate their prototype. If they're not happy with their prototype, they can go back and redesign it based on what they found from testing it and test it again. If they're not happy with it again, they can do the cycle continuously. They can redesign their test again. And then at the end, they can communicate and present their results and conclusions. Have you used the engineering design process and carried out engineering activities in the past? Okay, how did they go? Okay, so that's actually the engineering design loop. If you want to start very simply, ask, imagine, plan, create, and test. So the imagine, well, first of all, Janine actually mentioned it. The research is hugely important as well, that if you give them a challenge, let them go away and maybe look up videos, look up pictures, or just talk to each other. So they're brainstorming, what can we design here? And one important aspect is, my pre-service teachers always get annoyed by me, but I think it's really, really important that the imagining step, that they take time and they draw what they're imagining in their heads and what they're brainstorming in their heads. Because think about it, an engineer is not going to build anything without a sketch, or an architect is not going to build anything without a sketch, or a designer. So it's hugely creative, a STEM classroom. And they actually really get into, they love and they enjoy actually drawing their sketches in the imagining phase. So always, you know, slow down the lesson, be very careful that you don't have to go through the steps really quickly, you know. And children, that's one thing about children, they want to make, they just want make, but they want to jump the steps. But it's hugely important that you get them to brainstorm and imagine together. And what will happen is, like, if you have 4 or 5 children in a group, they might have all different ideas, you know, all ideas might be slightly different, but that's where they all have to debate and fight their corner and decide why their design they should go for, or why you go with another design. So it's the process of negotiation and collaboration and teamwork I find very enjoyable during the imagining and the planning stage, where they all then come together and decide on one prototype that they're going to design and build. So there's a lot of learning in the engineering design process, and there's a lot of learning in STEM lessons. So back to my question, I asked, so has anyone used that loop, the engineering design loop, before, or the engineering design process?
Not exactly the engineering design process, but I've worked with design thinking in my classes.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite the similar process, right? But it was for them to design school communication signs. So they had to analyze the whole school and decide where to put the signs, what kind of information was necessary. So we did the whole process, but through the design thinking point of view.
Excellent, because that's interesting, Bertie, because next Wednesday I'm talking about design thinking. So this is great, everything is coming up. Now, design thinking actually originated as an engineering, it was an engineering process. And if you ever hear about design thinking these days, it's in business. A lot of people use it in business schools, in innovation centers. But actually, it's very, very similar. And it's interesting, Bertie, I don't know if you did this, but you probably did if you used the design thinking process. Empathy is a huge part of the design, the first step of the design thinking process. So that will be where you're trying to understand how people feel about a product, how they work with a product, what works for them, what does not work for them. So my next step will be going from the engineering design process to the next Wednesday section on actually how do you bring in empathy into the classroom very easily with children. So that's brilliant, excellent. Anyone else use the engineering design process or something similar?
Dr.
Yeah.
Yes, I used, you mentioned the Legos, right? I used Legos. There was a school where I taught, and they adopted a book from a publishing company, and it was part of the program for them to work with Legos every now and then. So we were trained English teachers, right? We had 3 or 4 training sessions with the robotics teacher. So I'm going to ask you a question. Don't you think that STEAM classes should sometimes be more than one teacher class? Because we were taught about the logistics of the Lego, because they are the little parts, and So he taught us about how it works, but we are not specialists.
Yeah.
So there are moments when the kids need some support from a specialist. So don't you think there are moments that we should get together with a specialist to deliver these lessons?
Exactly. Especially when it comes to specific, I suppose, material and specific technologies that you're using. So, for example, back to my robotics, I use VEX robotics in the classroom, and I work myself and pre-service teachers work in the classroom with teachers in my area, but we also have a volunteer and an employee from Dell Technologies in the classroom as well. So we bring the educational piece, and we understand the curriculum, and we understand, we want to develop their literacy and all that, but the expert then in the technology piece and the programming piece is there to mentor the teachers and the children. But once they get the mentoring, and they're mentored for a full year in the classroom and in workshops with both of us, it does take time. I do agree, when you're using specific technologies like Lego, like Microsoft have a lot of different bits like micro bits. Have you heard of those? Or Arduino boards are another thing. Like, we can't be everything. I always say that we can't be experts in everything. So what I find in Ireland is we have a huge amount of industries only wanting to get involved, and as part of their corporate social responsibility, and they want to engage and they want to go into the classroom. So we kind of bring it together then in Mary Immaculate College. We bring together a project and we bring it to the schools. But yeah, Maria, we can't be experts in everything. So will we move on, Diego? So the next part is, I'm going to look at, I think it's the climate change now. How did you find using the cycle, the engineering design process? Where did you begin? What activities did you do to promote the engineering design process in the classroom? I have used the following STEM challenges to introduce the engineering design process to primary, second and third level students and in-service teachers during professional development sessions. I found the challenges very effective as they focused in on the engineering that provided a structure for the integration of science, technology and mathematics together. They were also very engaging, fun and collaborative. So the 3 challenges were Marble Madness. You and your team have been selected to make the longest, trickiest course in which to deliver a marble to its final destination. The longer, the trickier, the better. Another STEM challenge is called All Ramped Up. You and your team have been selected to design a ramp for a matchbox car to jump as far as possible. And the last STEM challenge that I introduced to children and teachers to get them familiar with the engineering design process is Down the Chute. You and your team have been selected to design and deliver a device that can take a marble 5 foot across the room and drop it into an open and empty plastic bottle. You want these challenges to be, I suppose, demanding and difficult. You want the children to take their time on their design, take their time on their research, and take their time on building their prototypes. All you need for these activities is anything that you can recycle. That is plastic bottles, cardboard, sellotape, etc. I always give the children a worksheet so that they can work it on in their teams. So I ask them to state their challenge. What are the set conditions? So I usually tell them what materials they can use so that I can provide them with them. And then specific requirements. For example, with marble madness, the marble must change direction during its journey. Maybe it must fly through the air, or maybe it must go up and it must go down. I always get the children to design their sketch. As an architect, designers, or engineers, you would always do a SketchUp of your prototypes. Then to ensure that they test their design, I would always include a part in the worksheet on how they plan to test their design. And then when they've tested it, how could they improve or redesign their design to make it even a better solution? And so these are the stages of the engineering design process that I will go through with the children and give them plenty of time at each step. Ask or define the problem, conducting research, imagine their solution and their prototype, plan and design their prototype, create and build their prototype, test and evaluate their prototype. Maybe they might have to redesign and improve their prototype, and communicate and present their prototypes back to the class. Remember, it's okay to go slowly at first. Don't feel that you need to embrace STEM mania too quickly. But when you do, you may wonder why I haven't been teaching this all along. Now, we're going to look at STEM challenges to tackle climate change. Once you have become familiar with the engineering design process and have used it in the classroom with the children through a variety of different activities, we will now move on to more specific project work. In recent times, there has been an ever-increasing emphasis on climate change in the media and increasing awareness among our younger generations, in particular as a result of the inspiring young activist, Greta Thunberg. Her actions have sparked a global movement for action against the climate crisis, inspiring millions of children to go on strike for our planet. Such actions have intrigued and sparked further curiosity among teachers, children, and entire school communities, with a hunger to learn more about sustainability, energy conservation, and climate change. It can be argued that education has a very important role to play in achieving our global sustainability goals in the future. Schooling finds itself at the centre of a set of global concerns about the future of the planet. And increasingly, schools are being asked not simply to teach students about these issues, but to shape the next generation of creative problem solvers who can quite literally save the world. There are particularly strong links between STEM education and education for sustainability that need to be made more explicit and further utilised in the classroom. STEM activities and the practice of scientific process skills can play a key role in exploring and providing possible solutions to the causes and impacts of climate change through questioning, observing, predicting, investigating, information, and knowledge exchange. Integrating STEM education and education for sustainability can facilitate the development of Prensky's solutionaries and globally empowered children. So STEM activities can allow the children to learn and apply content, practices, and skills of the STEM disciplines to situations that they are encountering in their everyday lives, such as climate change. True authentic STEM education incorporates Prensky's Better Their World paradigm. That is, STEM educated students are problem solvers, they're innovators, they're inventors, they're logical, self-reliant thinkers, and they're technologically literate. We need these individuals in order to raise awareness about the immediate effects and impacts of climate change before it's too late. Real-world STEM projects based on solving real-world problems can promote creativity, problem-solving, sustainability, and increase students' interest in STEM by developing both their conceptual understanding of key scientific principles and skills. STEM projects and activities can encourage exploration of new ideas, resourceful problem solving, and risk-taking through providing engaging lessons linked to relevant environmental, societal, and industrial issues. So we're going to look at possible examples in STEM challenge that you could use to tackle the topic of climate change in your classroom. I have divided up the STEM activities that I have developed into two categories. One, STEM challenges and projects that develop solutions in dealing with the impact of climate change. And two, developing innovations and prototypes in preventing climate change. So these are some activities that I have designed and developed that I use with pre-service teachers and with children in the classroom. So I have divided them into different categories: solar energy, wind energy, hydropower, and waste management. So these activities are involved in developing solutions in dealing with the impacts of climate change. So you could get your children to design, build, and cook using a solar oven. They could design and make their own solar panels to charge a mobile phone. They could make and design solar boats. If we look at wind energy, we might get them to design and create a wind turbine for a power supply company using only recycled materials. Looking at hydropower, we could ask them to design and develop a project on how we can use water more to develop a more sustainable world. And waste management. Design and trial a waste chemical-free lunch program in your school. Or develop an environmentally friendly water and plumbing system in your school or at home. Also, you could look at coping with extreme weather conditions due to climate change. So, for example, coping with flooding, coping with changes in temperatures, flooding, or coping with drought, coping with storm damage. So these are many other projects I have designed and developed for my children. Design and create a model floating garden that could survive a flood. Design and create a model house that can withstand rising flood waters or hurricanes or extreme temperatures. Design and create a drought-tolerant garden. Creating a groundwater runoff system to treat flood waters. And design and build a roof structure to reduce the amount of storm damage during high wind events. Or invent an emergency shelter that can fit a person and is sturdy and quick to build. They were all very specific projects with a specific challenge, but also you could go with more of an open-ended STEM project to ensure that global learning, sustainability, and citizenship education are incorporated effectively into STEM education. You could refer your children to the 17 Global Goals for Sustainable Development. and ask them to incorporate as many of the goals into the following STEM-focused projects on climate change. For example, how can we engineer a better, more sustainable world? How can we make the world a better place through STEM inventions? Use the engineering design process to develop a solution to climate change. You might ask them to design and improve community resilience under several different themes. You might get them to develop prevention equipment or structures or technologies to tackle climate change. Design and test possibly an energy efficient home of the future. Design a local and sustainable amenity, for example, their local playground. Maybe design and develop a more efficient, energy efficient hand dryer for toilet facilities. Create sensor technologies in detecting changes to our environment. The possibilities are endless. So linking STEM challenges and projects to the climate change problem is really a true, authentic STEM learning experience. There are many resources and websites out there. Practicalaction.org is a great resource. I would leave you with the concept of Solutionaries and the Globally Empowered Child by Prensky. Our kids now need an education that is far more connected and real than in the past. An education system that gives them not only knowledge, but also provides them with empowerment and agency. They need an education whose ends are not just to improve themselves, but rather to improve the lives of others. Our future generations need to be ready to tackle an array of global challenges. Education for sustainability, and in particular, education about sustainable energy and climate change, should and can feature prominently as part of STEM education. Interdisciplinary STEM engineering projects allows for a more flexible, emergent curriculum that is relevant, integrated, and embedding sustainability at its core. Such projects allows children time for critical reflection and to question the world around them, how things work, how they might be changed or disrupted, and thus encouraging more active and responsible citizens. Okay, great. Okay, so we covered I covered quite a bit there, and just to let you know, for people who are joining us for the first time, the video is made available to you, but also the PowerPoint in a PDF, so you can go down through it more slowly in the PDF format for yourselves as well. I suppose, as you can see, basically STEM is brilliant. You know, we have spoken about all the skills that children can develop through the engineering design process, through prototyping. So, but now also another thing that we can bring in is education for sustainability. And I actually find it works really, really good. Like the education for sustainability in Ireland, it would be really based in the geography curriculum. But now, actually, I think it should be brought across, and it should go across, you know, and it should be within STEM as well. Again, I'm not a geographer, and I just was speaking with my colleague in geography in Mary Immaculate College, and speaking about climate change. And I was thinking, why am I not covering it in my science lesson just because it's not in the curriculum? But actually it made perfect sense to me when I was looking at my STEM lessons to incorporate then these challenges. So actually I was looking at children designing solutions to deal with climate change, because it's happening, but also children could come up with solutions in how to prevent climate change. As you saw, you can have very specific projects, getting them, you know, say, how am I going to build a house to withstand an earthquake or a storm or severe flooding? Or you could have a more open-ended question like, how are we going to design innovative engineering to deal with climate change, and let them come up with their own ideas. Andre mentioned it, this COVID crisis has really shown, you know, how brilliant the children can be if they're left to their own devices and they're given a project, and that they go away and they investigate it, and they will come up with fantastic ideas. I find the education for sustainability piece really gets them to think. They do a huge amount of research around it, and kind of, we mentioned it with Bartil there, like the empathy piece. You know, we're all living in a world now that has to cope with climate change, and actually, you know, they understand it, but we actually can get them to even understand it even better when we use STEM challenges to cope with climate change. And Janine agrees, STEM is brilliant, Janine. Has anyone thoughts? Has anyone tried to incorporate climate change into their science lessons, or is it part of the curriculum, climate change, the elementary curriculum in Brazil, climate change? Or has education for sustainability been a feature in your curriculum or a focus for ye? Maybe not. So if no one is answering, maybe not. But it's just an idea, because I do not want these sessions to be very theoretical. I want to show you how you'd actually apply, what we're talking about in the classroom then as well. So has anyone any questions or comments?
Come on, guys. Does anyone have any question? Has it just Janaina? Yeah, you saw that.
Yeah, STEM is brilliant, yeah. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that no one has any comments for me. Oh, thank you. Livia said everything was new to her, which is great, because when I was designing these, I did not want to, go over material that might, you're all experienced teachers at this stage. I just wanted to try and keep bringing something new. And I suppose I have started doing a lot of readings around STEM education, and it's completely new to me. In the last 2 years, I'm no expert, but I'm finding my lessons much better. I just find that my pre-service teachers, but also children in the classroom, they love science, but now this whole new engineering has brought my lessons to a new level, and I don't think I would ever want to go back to not having some sort of design and make at some point during the year with my students. I suppose next Wednesday, if you're not tired of listening to me, we will be looking at looking at this concept called tinkering. So kind of messing around, trying to figure out how things work, and actually focusing in on toys. and looking at how you can bring toys into the classroom. So during the week, we looked at children's books and literature. Now we'll move on and we look at everyone has toys. That's what I'm trying to do as well here. You all have books in your school. You all have toys, hopefully, in your school, or you can bring them in from home. And one thing I must point out, I made a note of it here. You know, some of those design challenges, you might be thinking to yourself with the climate change, oh, I can't do that because I don't have solar panels, or I don't have the little tech pieces of technology to get them to design a prototype. But you don't, like, a prototype does not necessarily need everything. A prototype can just be made out of recycled materials, but the children have done the background research on the solar panels. So they can just make a solar panel out of cardboard, out of plastic. But when they're presenting their prototype back to you, they can talk to you about the technology in a solar panel that they would research. So don't be worried that you have to have all this high-tech equipment for STEM challenges. Your prototype, the materials that they have in the classroom, they will work with them to design and develop a prototype. You know, like an architect, he or she develops a model of a house, but it's, you know, it doesn't have all the technology in it. It's just a model of a house, but it's what they, you know, so just be mindful of that, that just your recycle bin will do for any of these lessons. Take everything out of your recycle bin and bring it back into the classroom.
Yeah, so I'm going to read aloud here what Janaina wrote on the chat box. She said, same here, it was hard to start a STEM project at my school without having any preparation as a teacher. It is hard, but it's an amazing approach.
Yeah, Janina, just start slowly. You know, the marble run that I spoke about, and the ramps and the pathways. Everyone, absolutely. I have done that from 6-year-olds to high school students to college students to teachers, and they absolutely love the ramps, you know, the 3 activities I showed you, down the chute, all ramped up, and the marble run. That's a great place to start. You know, don't expect to be able to jump right into climate change, for example. Start slowly but surely, and, you know, stay within your comfort zone for a while, and you can build on it all the time. Oh, rockets with straws. Yeah, rockets is a great activities with rockets. I usually try and incorporate them into Space Week. But yeah, so basically a rocket with straw, you just need straws and you just need a piece of paper and some tape, and you can make as many rockets as you want in the classroom then as well. And again, bridges, same thing, lollipop sticks, straws, paper, anything like that. Yeah.
Sorry, doctor, we just got a mock class last month about engineering, and this professor, he just gave this experience in engineering for kids. Okay. And one of this class, he showed how to build a bridge in the platform and whatever. And 2 weeks later, a kid, he just built a bridge from popsicle sticks.
Oh,
it was so nice to see that he just emailed me and said, look what I made. It was like fantastic. It was so nice.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not just art and craft, you know. No. It is much more than art and craft. They're learning so much about science and engineering in that activity. And I don't know who mentioned it again, but one woman, it was a Bertie, I can't remember, mentioned STEAM. So, you know, obviously you could a lot of these STEM lessons that we're doing here are basically STEAM as well, because they're bringing in creativity and they're bringing in lots of artistic concepts as well as engineering concepts.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Does anyone have more questions or any comments that you guys want to make? You can open your mic or you can write down there. I think it was great the class today when you brought this concept about the environment. Oh, it's brilliant. Was brilliant. I think it's going to open. I think they are quiet because they are thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how educators are. You guys are all the time. You're quiet. You're thinking something to plan for the kids next week. That's the thing, Professor.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's good. Oh yeah, there's someone else there. Excellent. My PhD is invested contribution. Oh.
Professor, can I just read loud for the holders?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So André Luiz, he said, excellent lecture for teachers in Brazil. Working with STEAM is a big challenge. My PhD thesis in progress investigates the contribution of STEAM education to teachers training. We have practically nothing in Brazil yet.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's very interesting, Andre. We are similar. STEAM, we're just getting our head around STEM, to be honest, and we're not there at all. And then to go to STEAM, very interesting, because I did research with a school and teachers and pre-service teachers on STEAM education. So I'd be very interested. I don't have a STEAM workshop lined up, a session, but in the future maybe we could do a STEAM workshop and just show how we incorporated it into classrooms in Ireland. Again, as Maria was saying, I'm no expert in art, so I'm a lecturer in science education, and another lecturer, Anne-Marie, in visual arts education came together, and we designed and developed a module for pre-service teachers on STEAM. It was a huge learning curve for me. Now, artists and scientists, we think very differently. So it took me a while to figure out the whole STEAM approach, but actually very, very worthwhile, and we are behind the times. Yeah, like yourself, there's nothing in Ireland really. Again, people are calling things STEAM, and they're basically art and craft lessons at the end of a science lesson. They're not STEAM. Very interesting, yeah.
Well, that's great. I think it was a fantastic lecture today. I just got some message on WhatsApp, Professor, just to say how happy they are.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and so I just want to say thank you for one more time and for take this Friday evening and then to share your experience as a doctor with all the Brazilian educators here. So thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, Holly. Thank you for all Mary Immaculate staff joining us today. Thank you for everybody to be here. Don't miss the next lecture next week. We are going to, as Professor said, we're going to talk about toys, and it's going to be an amazing lecture. It's going to be the last, unfortunately, this semester. For next semester, we are planning something. But yeah, so thank you very much. I hope you guys have a great evening, have a great Friday, and enjoy your weekend. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.